Hello again, Broncos country, and welcome to another edition of the Orange Weekly Pregame Podcast. As always, David and I are here to break down the upcoming game against the Cincinati Bengals after coming off of a pretty big win. We call big win off of a one-win team, but a pretty decisive win in Denver. Back in Denver again for the Cincinnati Bengals to come in town. First thoughts, David, shoot.
Man, it's a weird game because it's like, 7-6 Broncos against 7-6 Bengals. You've got a lot on the line here as far as potential playoff seeding. The winner of this game is in like really good position as far as, maybe locking up one of those wild card spots. Too late to say lock up, but in the driver's seat for one of those wild card spots for sure. The loser of this game is on the outside looking in, and pretty far on the outside looking in too. So it's the kind of a last gasp for the Broncos as far as playoffs go this year. Really, really interesting matchup to get into, and we'll go through all of it, Jared. But yeah, that's my initial thought is playoff seeding on the line here.
Yeah, and as we're getting through it, as I look through and do some research before we do this podcast, I'm seeing a lot of different like matchups where in some aspects they have the strength, in some aspects we have the strength, but it seems pretty 50-50 down the line as far as strength. It's not really one has stronger offense over the other, or one has stronger defense over the other. It seems like very equal teams right now. With Joe Burrow just playing some of the best football he's ever played. So they definitely have that going for us. But we're gonna break that down in just a minute. All we need you to do is sit back. If you're listening to us on the podcast, make sure you guys are going and following us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. If you're following us and watching us on YouTube, make sure you're downloading the podcast, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and all that. But all we need you to do right now as we talk through this is sit back, relax, and enjoy another episode of the Orange Weekly Pregame Podcast. All right, David, as always, we're here and we are sponsored by the one and only DraftKings Sportsbook. So if you guys have been liking these high-scoring NFL games of past, we have another no-brainer from the DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NFL. You will win $100 if you bet just $1 on any team to score and that team scores. So if that team scores, you win $100 off that $1 bet. So go ahead and download that DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. If you're like me and you don't have Sportsbook in your area, in your state yet, you can still get on the action. Daily fantasy sports contest. And if you listen to the Ragers podcast, we give you a lot of heads up and a lot of good stuff on the daily fantasy sports contest there. So what we need you to do is download that DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use the promo code TPPN. Bet just $1 on any team to score, and you win $100 in free bets if they score. If they score, you score with promo code TPPN this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NFL. As always, must be 21 years or older in a betting state. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit, $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, David, first question right off the bat.
Do it.
Should I be ready to be hurt again?
You should definitely be ready to be hurt again.
Okay.
Because, I look at this game, Jared, and we'll get into all the matchups, but it feels like two very similar teams right now. Two teams that have struggled with consistency this year. Two teams that are probably better on defense than they are on offense right now, but also, two teams who have leaned on their run game. And two teams who are 7-6 right now.
Right.
Very, very interesting dichotomies here. The one area of difference that I really see is the level of quarterback play right now. Joe Burrow is absolutely crushing it right now, whereas Teddy Bridgewater is very much a game manager, and I don't mean that in an insulting way. A guy who's not giving the game away with big turnovers most of the time, a guy who's playing inside himself. But Joe Burrow is absolutely making those next level throws, making those superior throws, those, the kind of throws that 10 guys in the entire league can make. Joe Burrow's right there right now. So why don't we start on, Bengals offense versus our defense, the kind of the fireworks show.
Yep, let's do it. And I think this is going to be the big one that everyone should be looking for. And I think this is the difference maker in the game. I think there's going to be very consistent play on their defense and our offensive. But I think the big difference between possibly having a blowout game where we lose in a blowout game and stopping them to minimal points really comes down to this right here, because Joe Burrow at any given time and the rookie Jamar Chase, putting his name in there for offensive rookie of the year and probably a front runner right now, just having a great year. T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd both playing very well at the wide receiver spot. But you're right, they lean on that run game of Joe Mixon, and how is that going to play?
Well, and it's going to be a tough week for us in Denver, because Draymond Jones probably not going to play, hasn't practiced all week. They were looking at him as maybe a guy who was questionable, but since he hasn't practiced once, he's officially listed as doubtful on the injury report. So I really don't think we can count on him to go. The rest of the Broncos defense looks relatively healthy, but without Jones in there to provide that interior pass rush and that run stop, especially against Mixon, it may be a tough day for the Broncos defense. You've got Shamar Stephen in there, Deshaun Williams, Mike Purcell playing that nose, rotating in and out. Shelby Harris has been questionable all week. He's been in practice, but he's been limited. So it's really a question of how many healthy bodies do the Broncos have on the defensive line? Can they be enough to stop Joe Mixon? And if you're slowing down Joe Mixon, that's at least enough to say, we keep the rest of this Bengals offense in front of us. But if you're not, running the ball in deep shots is what they want to do. So if you can't shut down the run game, it doesn't bode well for you setting down the deep shots, Jared. And what do you think? I mean, this is it's a question of our secondary versus their receivers, but also our pass rush versus their offensive line on those deep shots. Do you like a matchup there anywhere?
I do, and here's why. Their offense, two of their starting offensive tackles, Riley Reif, Isaiah Prince, their right tackles are out for this game. So they have backup, let's see who it was, Fred Johnson, who's played a total of 21 snaps this season in at that right tackle position. I think Jonathan Cooper might be able to get a couple moves on him on that outside due to that situation. Now their center also, while he's been playing a lot, is not playing very hot. So that interior defensive line, like we said, having injuries on our side or issues on our side, they have some issues on their side on that interior defensive line. And I think a lot of stunts might be coming our way as we look forward to that. Now Bradley Chubb not playing the greatest season of his career, but we can expect a couple stunts to get him through the middle, maybe have a little bit of a breakout game is what I would like to see. So the injury front on that part is a little bit difficult. And then there's something else that NFL.com, Cynthia Freudline, I think her name was.
Freeland, I think, but yeah.
Yeah, Freeland. So she's a very good analyst there at NFL.com, and she brought up the fact that Joe Burrow has his best QBR against the blitz, and the Denver Broncos have the worst pass defense when we blitz. So I think we're like a 52% completion rate when we send a blitz, which is, I think, bottom 5 in the NFL. So that's a huge thing to look forward to, because we've seen it sometimes when we send 4, we can get there. And sometimes when we send 6, we can't. So it really depends on which Broncos show up. I think against this offensive line, we might be able to put the packages together to get some pressure on Joe Burrow, make him roll out, make him make some mistakes, and make him make a bad decision. And in that case, then we'll have a good chance on him. The one thing that we have against this team that we normally have against most of the AFC West is their tight end. Uzma is not playing very well. CJ Uzma, who's normally a very good tight end, they don't target him nearly as much. And I think, again, talking about similarities, just great wide receiving core. Sometimes the offensive line isn't playing so hot. Great running game, and the tight end not utilized as much. So this is very similar offenses. And like you said, the biggest difference is the quarterback play of Joe Burrow being one of the top 5 in the NFL right now is the big difference, being that young guy coming up.
And let's diagnose their passing game a little bit more, because right now Joe Burrow leads the NFL with touchdowns over 30 yards with 11. Jamar Chase has 7 touchdown receptions over 15 yards, which also, I believe, not only leads the league, but I think is a rookie record. So it's that kind of offense for sure. They don't like to dink and dunk. They want to take shots. That's what this defense is built to stop. So it's very much a strength-on-strength matchup there. I'm really interested in particular to see the matchup of Pat Surtain versus Jamar Chase. One in out, we didn't really see that in college actually with, which is surprising considering, LSU versus Alabama, the two schools that they went to. So this is going to be a big time battle. Like you said, not so much. They don't really use the tight end that much in this offense, CJ Uzama, but they've got T. Higgins as the other wide receiver and Tyler Boyd, one of the best slot receivers in the entire NFL. You would like to see Bryce Callahan come back and play very meaningful snaps in this game. But we'll just have to see. He did not really, I don't think he played a single snap last week. Hearing the coaching staff talk about Callahan, they said he was ready to go, but they didn't need to use him. So they activated him, it sounds like, a week before they really thought they would need him, which I think is probably a good thing.
Right.
Good thing. Good to have him available, even if you don't trot him out there. Good to save his legs if you don't need him for last week's game against Detroit. But yeah, I think he's going to be a big time X factor in this game. Jared, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Callahan needs to have a big game in this game. Talk about Justin Simmons having kind of a bounce back second half of his career, of his season this year, just playing very meaningful football. Kareem Jackson being healthy. I think the defensive backfield of our Broncos being healthy is the key to where we're at right now. And against that deep threat, we have to really worry about that Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow connection. That deep threat's going to really come down to the communication between Pat Surtain, Kyle Fuller, and Justin Simmons, and I think that's really going to be the difference maker. If they can connect on some of those deep shots, we've seen it. We've seen it this year, this season. Is those big plays are what's killing us. We could play the grind out football all day long, but as soon as they get a couple big plays, it's kind of the end for the Broncos, right? Pick sixes, big touchdown plays, big long touchdown plays. It just seems like it takes the wind out of the Broncos completely. And we got to have that. We got to have that going in. I think Justin Simmons needs to have a big game. Pat Surtain, that communication in that defensive backfield is going to be the biggest difference on that side of the ball.
Yeah.
All right, now, David, let's go ahead and... Oh, you have one more about that?
Just one more, and it's a real quick one. The Bengals have 15 rushing touchdowns this year. Joe Mixon has 12. They also have 26 receiving touchdowns. Jamar Chase has 10. Nobody else has more than 5. So it really seems like if you shut those two dudes down, and I know it's easier said than done, they're very talented players, but if you shut those guys down, the Bengals have a tough time coming up with other answers on offense. If you can really limit the damage that those two guys can do, you can make it a tough sledding day for the rest of their offense.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And I think that's probably what the game plan is going to be. Talking about shutting down the run game is a big part of that. And I think the fact that Joe Burrow has been playing so well is because they do establish the run to set up the pass, and shutting down Joe Mixon is probably going to be priority number one for that Denver Broncos defense.
Definitely.
Okay, let's go ahead and switch the side of the ball, and I'm really excited to talk about this. First of all, our offense looked pretty good last week against a Detroit Lions defense. So what are we expecting against this Cincinnati defense, who, again, very similar, a good defense on paper, has led up a lot of points in certain games. What are we expecting from their defense off the bat?
Well, and where you want to start with this defense specifically is the defensive line. That, I think, is the strength of their team. You've got two players with more than 7.5 sacks. You've got Sam Hubbard at one defensive end. He's got 7.5. You've got Trey Hendrickson on the other side with 12.5 sacks. So it's going to be a difficult task for the Broncos offensive line to keep these guys out of the backfield all day. What I'm thinking they want to do is keep that ratio of 35 runs to 25 passes that they've been real successful with most of the season. You don't want to get outside yourself and try to be taking deep shots. You don't want to be down by 14 points. If you can keep running the ball, Javonte Williams was in and out of practice this week, but he'll be healthy. Looks like Melvin Gordon will be good to go as well. That's really where I think you want to exploit the matchups here, because you've got a good defensive tackle combination in Larry Ogunjobi and DJ Reader, but that's, I think, where the weakness of this defense is there, and the secondary. If you can get your guy, Teddy Bridgewater, enough time to pass, I think he'll have success against the secondary. I think these receivers will have success winning these one-on-one matchups. But, that's really where I'm focusing my attention on now. Run the ball first, and then let your playoff game, your play action game, and your passing game build off of that.
Yeah, that's a big point. And another good part about that is their middle linebacker, Logan Wilson, is out for the game. Marcus Bailey is also questionable to play. So two of their linebackers there on that linebacking core probably not going to be there. And that's a big heads up for us. Their injury list is almost just as long as ours. And this is what I want to get to here. The biggest part about this whole thing is their number one cornerback, Chidobe Awuzie, is out for this game, and then Vernon Hargraves, their second cornerback on the other side, is questionable. He did not practice for the last 2 games with an illness. I'm not sure what that illness fully is. That's just what it's listed as. So there is a chance that he doesn't play, which opens up backup quarterbacks or backup corners. 2 first-round draft picks who have not panned out in the NFL, and Trey Waynes and Eli Apple, both first-round selections in their respective 2015, 2016 draft classes. That's obviously a matchups that we could take advantage of, that we could really exploit. You know, that those 2 guys we can really get to, but it really comes down to establishing the run. And the last thing I want to say for the defensive backfield there is Von Bell, their safety. He is while he's playing very, very good football, he has played a majority of his snaps inside the box. He's played about 250 snaps at free safety as well as, but he's a strong safety. He played almost 380 snaps inside the box, which is a big part of this. Is if we can establish the run, force that strong safety to come down to the box, set up the play action. Now we're talking one-on-ones on the outside with a free safety over the top, and I think that's where we're going to get our best open receivers with the guys that we have. Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick. I think that's what we want. And then the other thing I want to see a little bit that I like to see against Detroit is the Noah Fant one-on-ones on the wide receiver on the outside. I think that's a big part of that. And I think if we can get that, it kind of establishes the setup there for knowing whether or not it's man. If they could put a linebacker one-on-one with Noah Fant, I'd love to see it. And as Joey B is watching here from our YouTube, this is a great point, Joey. The Broncos running game could be their best defense. Keeping Burrow off the field, controlling the clock, doing what we did against the last couple teams. I think you're right. That is going to be our best defense, is staying on the field on our offense. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, one underrated area of the Bengals offense that has been a negative for them has been turnovers. So it's, one of those things where if you see the Bengals offense on the field a lot, you have that opportunity. You have that possibility to turn the ball over against them. And this Broncos defense has been doing that a lot more as of late. I think they have 4 games in a row with an interception. Yes.
Right now. So, yeah, they're doing a good job at turning the ball over, getting those turnovers. You've just got to keep the ball out of Cincinnati's defense hands at this point. You've got to be, if you're Teddy Bridgewater, making smart throws. If you're the running backs, hold on to those balls. You cannot give this team an extra opportunity, because we talked about how closely matched they are this entire podcast. You can't give them extra opportunities. You can't be that Broncos team that beats yourself.
Right.
Because let's get into this now. If the Broncos win this game, they are in an excellent position as far as wild card seeding, playoff seeding. They'll have head-to-head wins over both the Chargers and the Bengals, who are both teams that they're vying, against for those wild card spots. But if you lose this game, it's almost the opposite. It's almost you're in as bad a position if you lose this game as you are in good a position if you win this game. So you've really just you kind of have to focus on going 1-0 this week, right? It's kind of what we talked about all season, but it's one of the most meaningful matchups you've had. This will probably make or break your season. If you want to do anything past the December mark into January, this is where it has to be meaningful, right?
Well, and we've been saying it, basically last 3 games. The Kansas City game was a must-win. The Detroit game was a must-win for a lot. But now we're talking about, we're basically in the playoff mode. We could probably lose at least one of the next 4 games that we have, 3 games that we have. But this is not one of them. If we lose one, maybe Kansas City. The fact that Kansas City beat the Chargers is a big help for the Denver Broncos going forward with our win against them earlier in the season. And the Raiders not playing till Monday is going to be interesting to watch because I'm interested to see how that game turns out.
Right.
But yeah, this game is going to be huge for playoff implications. I think we put ourselves in the driver's seat with a win, and it's a game at home that I think is another big part of this. Is having Cincinnati at home really helps us going forward if we could take care of them.
But you've got to execute. Like this is
you have to.
Like we've been talking about it all season. Be consistent, execute, go out there and do what you did last week. And they haven't done it yet. And we're going to get into score predictions in a minute, but I'm not sure that they do it again this week. But if you want to have a shot at the playoffs at all, this is your time.
Yeah, I mean, I really, after everything we just talked about, I really do think our run game and the fact that the one thing that's been consistent is at least we're sticking with the run game. The only difference is against the Chiefs, we just could not put it in the end zone for whatever reason. We just could not get into the end zone, even though our run game was playing amazing, and with only one guy. Now we have both of our guys fully healthy. I think our run game is really what makes the difference, and the linebacking core of this team is not playing very well against the run. We get to that second level. I expect a couple big 15, 20-yard runs from either Javonte or Melvin, and we keep them off the field. I really think that we have the chance. Based on what I'm seeing the last couple games, and if we stick to that same concept, we have 3 games in a row, we've had the same concept. If we stick to that concept, I don't see us losing this game.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know, buddy. Like, I wonder, I can see it going a lot like the Chiefs game, honestly, where we're running the ball all over them between the 20s, and we can do whatever we want, and then we get to the red zone, and it stalls out a little bit. And, whether we're settling for field goals or going for it on fourth downs and not making it, it to me seems like the kind of thing that it could be a low-scoring game easily on both sides, but for sure on the Broncos side. I'm really nervous, buddy. I really am.
Well, I think Cincinnati has that big strike capability. I don't think we're as worried about Cincinnati as we are against Kansas City. I mean, what is it? Let's talk about this for a second. It's a little bit off subject.
Okay.
What is it about teams against Kansas City specifically that just feel like they have to score touchdowns or else they're not going to win? Did you see the Thursday night game against Sandy? Like the Chargers, they left, I don't know, at least 12 points off by going for it on fourth down, going for the end zone for whatever reason. And they just, what is it against? And we did the same thing. What is it against Kansas City specifically that feels like we can't settle for points?
Yeah, for sure. And, because in years past, that was the prevailing logic against Kansas City, right? That was it doesn't matter if you outscore them 24-0 in the first half. If you're settling for field goals in the second half, they're going to come back on you. They're going to score 35 points in the second half, and if you don't keep up, that's it for you. And that was the Kansas City offense for so long. And when you have a deep strike offense like the Chiefs did and like the Bengals do this year, it gives the impression, I think, to your opponent's minds that no matter how good your home team defense is, that other team can come in and score on you at will. And even if they don't do it for 3 quarters, they can pull it off in the fourth quarter. They can take you deep for 3 touchdowns. And when you were ahead, now you're behind, when you blink and turn around. I don't think the Bengals have that capability just because they don't have as many playmakers as the Chiefs do. But right now, I think they've got a quarterback who's playing better than Patrick Mahomes. And they've got a wide receiver who's playing, I don't know if he's better than Tyreek Hill, but I think he's at least on that level right now. So when you've got a combination like that cooking, it's not so much a big deal that they don't have a Travis Kelce on that team right now. It's not so much a big deal that they don't have second, third, fourth options because they can. It feels like they can do it whenever they want. So if you're the Broncos defense, that's got to be your first goal: is take that away from them and let them beat you some other way.
That's a good point. So a couple other things I want to mention. Vegas has the Broncos favored by 3 points, which is usually about 2.5 points is usually like they think it's an even game and they give those 2.5 to the home team. However, 3-point favorites as the Denver Broncos as the home teams means there's a slight edge. Vegas thinks there's a slight edge to the Denver Broncos on this game here. I'm going to give you a little bit of preview, guys, onto the Rager show. I'm going to actually do what Ray does to me to David here. I'm going to give him some rapid-fire questions on some of the money lines and some of the things that we're looking at for this game and see what he thinks. First of all, over under 44.5 points for the game.
Under.
Okay. And why is that?
I think this is a defensive battle on both sides. I think the winning team probably scores between 20 and 24 points. And I don't see either of these offenses going off for big plays, especially in the passing game against each other.
Okay. Over under passing yards for Teddy Bridgewater, 233.
Probably under. I'm going to say between 175 and 225 is the ceiling for Teddy this time. It's possible, like we talked about it earlier. The matchup for Teddy is good against this secondary. It's not good, not as good, certainly, with this pass rush against our offensive line. So I think he probably gets the ball out very quickly. The shorter passes, that's going to be my guess, is between 175 and 225.
All right, last question here, and then we'll go into our score predictions and how we feel like this game is going. It sounds like you already kind of have an idea of how this game is going to go. Over, under, Noah Fant receptions at 3.5. Do we target Noah Fant more than 3 times this game?
No,
that's a big conversation. That's a huge piece to our offense that I feel like could be used a little bit more.
I feel like not, and this will probably roll into my score prediction a little bit, but I don't think we win this game. And to me, to win this game, you've got to have Noah Fant touching the ball at least 5 times. Okay. I don't see it. I think this is one of those games where we see that the Broncos are just not ready to compete on any kind of meaningful stage right now. They are good enough to go 8-9 or 9-8 this season. And, in some other season, that might be good enough for a playoff spot. But I think in the AFC, with as close as things are right now, you'll have to go 10-7 to get those wild card spots, or 9-8 and have numerous tiebreakers in the AFC. And if the Broncos lose this game, they're not going to have those tiebreakers. I feel like, and this is my score prediction, like 24-20 or 24-17 Bengals. I think it's a close game. I think the Broncos keep it close. I think it's a defensive battle the whole way. I just don't think they're ready to step up and say, now we're ready to play consistent football. Now we're ready to beat the teams that we have to beat if we want to answer these questions. I don't see that team in front of me right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And I'm trying to think back. When was the last time we won a close game?
Yeah. Right.
Like a game that came down the last couple drives. So the closest game that we've had in the past, win or lose, is against the football team.
Okay.
And that was never, I never felt like that game was out of reach. Like,
right.
We won 17-10, but there was never a point where it was like, oh, this is close, this is coming down to. It was never that. Literally not once this season has there been a game that has been close, within a score. Everything has been within. The Browns lost. Okay, we lost to the Browns, and we were close there. The Eagles, we were close until we threw the pick 6, then we gave up.
Yep.
Everything else has been 2 scores or more, and I don't, which means I don't know. And this is kind of putting it on you, on what you're saying. There is, I don't know what football team is going to show up for the Broncos when it is a close game and we need that score at the end of the game.
Yeah. Can
we trust this team who's never really been put in that position other than one game this season to go down and finish a game?
Right.
So it's gonna be pretty interesting. So I see it 2 ways, David. And the first way is the way you say, control the clock, push down the field, keep their offense off the field, low scoring game. I think if it's that way, the Broncos win. The other option is we go down, we go out there, they get the ball first, they score. We get the ball, we go 3 and out. We give the ball back to them, they score field goal or touchdown. And for some reason, first half of the season, this is how it went. Maybe we learned our lesson. I don't have faith in that. That we decide that we just need to throw the ball all of a sudden. And then now we're throwing the ball all of a sudden, and we're throwing it deep, and we get a couple good deep throws, but we can't get in the end zone because we just don't know how to do that. And we make a couple bad mistakes, and this game gets out of hand with it by halftime.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, we're down by 3 scores at halftime, and it's trying to play catch up. We play catch up a little bit, but not enough to finish the game. And those are the 2 football teams that I've seen this year.
Yeah.
Like those are literally the 2 options, and against what we just broke down earlier in this podcast, that's exactly the 2 different types of teams that we got. We have a quick, high-scoring, a quick option team in the Cincinnati Bengals, and you have the run team that has the quick over the top, but hasn't been able to use it. But control the ball, control the clock, get the ball down the field, don't make mistakes. Those are the 2 teams I've seen this year, and I want to err on the side of we're going to control the ball. We have 2 strong running backs that are going to be able to keep running the ball and keep legs healthy. We have a very good offensive line. We have a full, healthy offensive line again, which is nice. Bobby Massey is actually playing very, very good football this year, and I love the fact that we have – this is the first time in I don't know how many years that we could talk about a right tackle being consistent.
Yeah, absolutely.
We just got to keep the ball on the ground and open up the pass game through the run. Let them stack the box. Let them try to stop our run, and as soon as they do, throw a couple passes over the top of them and keep them honest.
Yeah.
That's the way we win this game, and I think that's what we're going to do. I believe that Shermer, after, I think it was the Chargers game, David, we went to that Chargers game, and on the way back, you talk about Fangio set a limit. Like, you will run the ball X amount of times. We don't know what that number is, but X amount of times, and we matched it. And since then, we have stuck to the run game, and we've done a really, really good job. I mean, Javonte Williams had a career game against Kansas City, and our lines, our scores down the line, we should have won that game. We just couldn't get in the end zone. So I think this Broncos team is there. I think the Broncos team is ready to run the ball down their throats and win on the ground with a couple passes over the top, maybe take a couple deep shots every once in a while like we did to Noah Fant last week, and just keep running the ball, keep the clock going, and we win the game that way. And my score, I guess, the total score prediction, I'm going to say 24 to 16. I think we could keep them out of the end zone. I think our 2 safety look is one of the better ones in the league, and I think we can keep them out of the end zone with the deep shots, and I think that our front 7 is going to be able to stop their front 7.
Very good. All right. Well, then I will start with final thoughts as we head into this game. This is, I know, we've been saying it all season, and we've been saying that we've been saying it all season. All season. Yes. This is kind of the make or break week for the Broncos, and it's weird that it's come down to week 14 at this point, week 13, week 15, something like that, and it's just, you've got 5 teams in the AFC alone with 7 wins right now, and that's part of it. The lack of separation there is just because all of these teams have 6 or 7 wins right now. But this is the time when the teams that are actually going to make the playoffs start to separate themselves. And I haven't seen anything from the Broncos this season that makes me think, they're going to separate themselves from the rest of the AFC now, because they've had opportunities and they just haven't done it. But if you are going to see it at all this season, this is the last chance. And if you don't see it this weekend, I don't think you're going to see it for the rest of the year. But I'm also not saying it's impossible.
I'm gonna echo those sentiments, David, and I think the biggest part is that if we lose this game, there is not another game that we can lose for the rest of the season to make the playoffs, and it's all AFC West teams, and 2 of them are away games, and I think that puts our back into a corner, and it puts us into a very precarious situation where I don't trust the Broncos to finish out undefeated against 3 AFC West teams and 1 team that we haven't won against in like 12 games.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty important. Regardless of whether or not it's in Denver, this game is what sets in motion the rest of the season, and what sets in motion the rest of the motivation for the rest of the season. So we have to win this game. Yeah. And we talked about it against the Chiefs. Everybody was talking about how it's the most important since Super Bowl. That was a stupid line. And I mentioned it on the pregame too. When everyone was saying it, that was not. I don't understand how that they thought that was so important. This is, with the way that the NFL season is going this year, this is probably the most important game of this season by far. Even outside that Kansas City game, this is the most important game of the season. Yeah. As we go into at the Raiders, at the Chargers, and then having Kansas City at home, We have to win this game in order to set our priorities for the playoffs and set our goals lofty, because then we can lose one of those games if we need to, right? Gives us a little bit of more cushion. But I think we could do it, David. I really do. I'm sitting here. I'm confident, and I'm going to do it again, David. You ready for it?
Oh boy, here he goes.
I bet you I will wear the beanie the entire show. However, if the Broncos lose, you have to wear the beanie for the entire show against the Chargers one, because that's the one you're going to be at my house for.
Ooh. I'll raise you, Jared. I want to raise you right now.
Okay, I'm interested. I'm listening.
It is a beanie versus a visor, but instead of wearing them during a show, we wear them to the Raiders game. The loser has to wear the winner's style of hat for the entirety of the Raiders game. What do you say?
Oh, but it's in Vegas and it's going to be warm. My head is going to be on fire.
Well, then I guess you had better decide how safe you feel in your bet.
And we have to take the pictures and post it all over social media, including the Orange Weekly Twitter.
All over the social media. Oh, yeah.
All over the Orange Weeklies.
All over our socials.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, I take that bet.
Okay, it's a bet.
I take that bet.
All
so
right.
instead of on a show, we do it at the Raiders game.
At the game. Absolutely.
Perfect.
Visor versus puffball. You are going down. I am going to be sad for you, but not as sad for you as I would be for me if I lost this bet, which I won't.
Yeah, but you're going to be sad in general because the Broncos lost.
Well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Either way, you're sad.
No, I'm not sad, Jared, because you know why? Here's why. Because I'm dead inside and you're not. And you haven't learned this lesson, and I have.
I have hope.
No.
I have faith.
Don't do that to yourself, because when you lose bets like this, it's going to hurt you all the more. I'm invulnerable to it. I cannot feel it. Yes.
Okay.
So.
Well, don't worry. I'll bring the visor.
Great.
And I'll make sure that you have an extra visor to wear at the game.
I won't need it, but thank you. That'll be nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're so confident in the Broncos losing. I don't know how to feel about this.
Well,
all right, David. Let's go ahead and end this off. We have our bet going, and I hope people comment on the Tuesday show. Make sure you guys are commenting at which one of us should be wearing the visor or the beanie, or hit us up on the social media. I'm super excited about it. I think this game is going to be very interesting. I do not think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be a good game for the Broncos, and it's going to bring some excitement back into Mile High. Make sure that you're showing up. If you're a season ticket holder and haven't been showing up, that's on you. But make sure you're going to that game if you can, if you have a chance. I'm living in California. I went to Colorado for the first time in like 3 years, and I went to a game. So I was just making sure that I did my part. And then next week, me and David will be at the show, at the game. So we're super excited about that. But David, without further ado, I love you, man. And as always, we're going to finish off with a strong
Go Broncos.
Broncos.